Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to the MS&Me Radio Network, where you have MS stories, theories, ideas, situations, and real-life people available to you 24/7 around the globe. I'm so excited to be a part of the MS&Me Radio Network because I want to bring new information and ideas and therapies and theories to people with MS that can help them on their own journey to hopefully better quality of life and really healing from MS. My name is Kelly Alderton. I am an author of the book Waking Up from MS, My Journey to Health, Healing, and Living Symptom-Free. It's a book that details my almost 30-year journey with MS, living with it and beating it finally. So I hope you can check that out. I am a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, and I want this broadcast to be a place where you can come to have new ideas about healing naturally and holistically, because that's exactly what I did on this journey, and I know of the importance of looking to alternative therapies. And today I'm really excited about my guest, Jennifer Butler. She has an amazing story about her own journey with MS and some new therapies that are out there that could help us on our journey to actually beating MS. Jennifer, welcome to the call.
Good morning, Kelly. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Jennifer, and I'm so glad you're here, and you and I were chatting before about how I'm just amazed and encouraged at all of the ways that we can come together as a group and share information about how we can beat MS. And your story is so inspirational. And can you first talk to us about how you were diagnosed and then how you decided to get on the protocol of high doses of vitamin D to beat MS?
Sure, absolutely. So I was diagnosed at 35. I'm 46. I, long story short, had jumped off the back of a flatbed trailer in the process of moving someone's home. Second I hit the ground, I felt a jolt in my head, and I had turned back over my shoulder and felt really dizzy, and I just felt sort of an odd sense of, I can't even explain it, just an odd sense after that, and things were a little dizzy maybe. So the next morning I woke up and I had double vision. So I was a medical transcriptionist. I worked at home, and I homeschooled my child, and I was on the computer maybe 8 or 10 hours a day sometimes, so I thought it's eye strain. And I let it go for several days, but I also had enough medical knowledge maybe to scare me a little, and after several days I thought this is neurological. I went into the emergency room, and by the next morning I was diagnosed with MS. I still didn't believe them because the second I hit the ground, I noticed a change, and I thought, and I asked, how sure are you? And they said 65 to 75%. Well, of course, me being the eternal optimist, I said, well, so that's a 25 to 35%. They're wrong. Turns out they weren't wrong. I was sent over to the cancer center to get an infusion of high doses of prednisone, and after 3 days it went away. So fast forward, 2011, before I started the protocol, I had nothing after that. I had some annoying I had a cramp in my foot when I pointed my toe. When I walked out on a hot day, I felt sort of weakness in my legs, not a mobility issue, but just a feeling of weakness. And I had some blurry vision, but I never had another exacerbation. I had a daughter in 2008. She was healthy. I was put on Avonex in the very beginning, and I didn't take that like I should because when I first started, they didn't have that auto-injector pen. And once they did have the auto-injector pen, I just got to the point where I wasn't really having any issues. I didn't like the shot because it reminded me of the disease I wanted to forget. So I probably didn't take it very often at all. When my daughter was about 3 years old, I thought I need to be more responsible. I went in to get an MRI, and that was 2015 in April. I had 14 active lesions. I should backtrack to say, before that time, I was noticing that vitamin D was related. I saw a lot of articles about vitamin D and MS. I went to have my levels checked, and my levels were 9.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't know what I needed or how much I needed. I just knew that I needed some. So, I went down to Walgreens. I got some vitamin D3, and I took 2 or 3 extra tablets, maybe 3 to 5 times a week. I don't even know how much I was taking, but it was just a couple. So they were 5,000 units, so maybe I was taking 10, 2 or 3 times a week. In April of 2015, when I went for that MRI, I had 14 active lesions, and my vitamin D level was 46. So it had gone up a little.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, your Avonex isn't working. So I confessed that I wasn't really taking it. She suggested Gilenya, Tysabri, and Aubagio. I didn't like any of the options, either because of the side effects or because of the danger. Of course, Tysabri has a pretty bad track record.
Right.
And so I said, can we please just try the Avonex? I will take it every week like I'm supposed to. She agreed and said we'd do it for 6 months because that's when it reaches full efficacy. And we would go back in August midway to have another MRI. So I cleaned up my diet. I was eating very healthy. I was exercising. I lost a lot of weight. I went in August with, wonderful, expecting wonderful news, and it wasn't. I had 15 new lesions at that point.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought, well, we have 3 more months, and so I'm going to see this through to November. I came in November, and I had 10 new lesions. And my vitamin D level was 85 at that point, which I think is significant because your vitamin D level doesn't always correlate to your vitamin D has to do with your resistance. Some people are resistant to vitamin D. In the autoimmune community, that's our problem. It's not enough vitamin D in our system because we're resistant, so we have to take more doses. So at 85, I had acquired 10 new lesions in 3 months.
Wow.
She said to me, we need to shut this down now. This is aggressive. And she had said to me, Jen, cards on the table. You're not having any issues. I wasn't. I had all of these lesions, and I was showing no physical disability. So,
Jen, can I interject
yeah.
point? I want our listeners to understand the fact that when you have lesions, it doesn't always correlate to disease activity. I know when people are newly diagnosed, they start to freak out. I have all these lesions, and they really get off track because just because you're having a lesion does not mean you're having disease activity. So I just want to kind of throw that in there so they can understand that they don't have to be in a panic, just like you had the lesions, but you weren't having the symptomology, which is the key thing to focus on.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Because I think that scares people, and not that you shouldn't be cognizant of it, but don't let it scare you because it's not always the case. And then there are people that have no lesions and they do have disability. So I'm not sure that we've sort of wrapped our heads around all that process yet,
right.
in the scientific community. So I told her yes, I would go on Aubagio because it was the least toxic. And that night I went home and I started looking on YouTube of all places and found this doctor. He is a professor of neurology and neurosurgery in Sao Paulo, Brazil. He had been treating patients for quite a while with vitamin D. He had gone to medical school and realized that there were so many published studies that weren't in the textbooks. And he sort of sought to research this. And as he did, he said there was just mountains of information with vitamin D and autoimmune disease saying that this helps. So he started treating patients and seeing that they were getting better. I went back to my neurologist and I said, I want to start the vitamin D therapy, and she agreed to run the labs for me. I didn't tell her I wasn't taking the medication because I was afraid that if it did work, she could say, well, it's because of the medication that you were taking. So I didn't tell her that, and I went ahead and I started. I started in December of 2015. No, I'm sorry. I went to see my protocol doctor in 2015, and then I started in February of the next year. I was headed to nursing school, and I was taking anatomy. I started to notice a little blurry vision because I always had glasses for anatomy because we were looking through microscopes and we were looking at tiny things all the time. I also noticed that I was having trouble studying. I wouldn't remember, even after studying for hours and hours, I was a 4.0 student, and suddenly my grades were dropping because I couldn't remember. And that was kind of scary. So I can tell you one time in anatomy, they were talking about myelin sheaths. They were talking about oligodendrocytes. And these are the things that build myelin around the neurons in the brain. And my anatomy professor said the problem with oligodendrocytes is they aren't effective. Maybe, I think it was under 20%, maybe 13% effective. They just didn't build it fast enough to repair it in an MS patient. And he said, and that's MS. So I went, and I was having lunch between classes, and I saw a study come up, and it was by Cambridge University in England, and they said, we added vitamin D to the oligodendrocytes, and it increased them by 85%.
Wow.
So vitamin D will boost those oligodendrocytes, and they can build myelin. But the thought has always been, you can't rebuild myelin, and we're finding now that that's not true at all.
Exactly, because we know vitamin D can rebuild the myelin sheath. Sure. And for everyone that's listening, you need to understand that. I mean, and vitamin D is not the only way, but it's very effective in rebuilding and repairing that myelin sheath. So it's all about focusing on doing the right things to heal your body, just as what you're telling us right now, Jennifer, about what you did and what you continue to do.
Yeah. So I went on the protocol, and a couple of months into it, I was cleaning my office, and I came across my glasses. And it was funny because I thought, I haven't even thought of those in months. Because I hadn't needed them. You know, I didn't have blurry vision, so I didn't think about it, and it never even occurred to me. So my immediate thought was, could this be working? So I pointed my toe to see if it would cramp, and it wouldn't, and my reaction was, oh, my gosh, this is working. So I called my neurologist, and I was like, can we do an MRI? And she was curious, too, so she said, yes, absolutely. In June of 2016, I had an MRI, and there was, for the first time in 10 years, no activity. When she opened up, she had gone and been really busy that day, and she had come in and said, you know what, we're going to open these together, because typically she would know beforehand. When she opened them up side by side, here's this picture with all these lesions from the last time, and here's the current one, and it looked like an empty chalkboard. There was nothing glowing for the first time in 10 years. So I would always have to go and get Solumedrol infusions after my neurology appointments.
So Jennifer,
yeah.
I want to just talk about that a little bit more. So from the previous MRI to the current MRI, when you were doing the D, there were no lesions?
There was one lesion, but it wasn't enhancing. So I had only been on it a few months, and we wanted to hurry up. You need to be on the protocol like 7 to 12 months before you actually see anything on imaging. So I had a little talk with myself there in her office before she came in, and I said, you're committed to this for a year. You know you're not going to see anything most likely, so you're not going to cry. You're just going to walk out of here with your head up. But that's not what happened at all. I mean, we high-fived, and there were tears involved, and she said, wow, that's impressive. And, you know, we were both shocked. We sat there with our jaws on the floor. But I had started taking a little bit of vitamin D beforehand when I was reading that it correlated, so that's probably what kept me, you know. So that was probably a 5-month period between when I started taking it on my own and started the protocol. So there was a tiny little lesion because we hadn't been on it for 7 months to a year. And then the second one showed that tiny lesion too. Again, it wasn't an active lesion. By the third one, everything was gone, but nothing. There was no activity from day one.
Wow.
Yeah, so now I'm 2.5 years out. I've had 3 MRIs, and it always comes back just blank. And then some of the lesions that aren't active are shrinking, and that is your vitamin D rebuilding that myelin sheath, which we all thought was impossible.
Right. Wow. This is so encouraging, Jennifer. Now, so it took you about 5 months to get this. But let me ask a question about testing. Now, they're particularly tracking your vitamin D levels per se. What levels are they actually tracking when you're on this protocol?
That scares people because my vitamin D level last check was 283. It can go much higher because we're all resistant to it, even though our level is probably different than what the common thought would be for an average vitamin D level. We don't utilize it in the same way. So it's the parathyroid hormone. It's known as PTH, and PTH and vitamin D work synergistically in the body to maintain your calcium level. So when you go on the protocol, doctors will usually say, what about vitamin D toxicity, which is called hypercalcemia. It's when your body holds on too much calcium, and then you start seeing that come up as kidney stones and issues like that. But with the protocol, we're tested for that. We limit our calcium and we hydrate, so we flush all that calcium through the kidneys, and therefore we don't see hypercalcemia on the protocol. The only time we've seen that is people who don't follow the diet. But if you follow the diet and you limit your calcium, it's not a problem. And that's clear. So people really need to know when your doctor says this to you, we have evidence that you can show them and studies that you can show them, but it's not an issue. And there are thousands of us. None of us have hypercalcemia. We're all very healthy.
Just because you are on the protocol with doctor supervision, so you can make sure everything's staying on track.
Yes, it should absolutely be done with doctor supervision, because if you have an issue that is underlying, like hyperthyroidism, some of those need to be taken care of first. So there's an extensive set of baseline labs that you take before you begin the protocol, and you need to absolutely do that with the protocol doctor. And then every 3 to 6 months you go in and you retest your calcium and your PTH and the different lab values that are pertinent to just monitoring.
Okay, and another question, and I know there are people on this journey at many different levels, some with relapsing remitting, some with secondary, and then primary progressive. Is it ever too late to get started on this protocol? And also, do you know people who have been at later stages of the MS journey and that this has helped them as well?
The answer to your first question is no, it's never too late. So the purpose of the protocol is to stop disease progression. And the bonus is sometimes you see reversal. So if you have symptoms that are 12 to 24 months along, like a new disability, that will likely reverse. If you have disability that's longer, sometimes it will reverse, sometimes it will improve, and sometimes it won't improve at all. But the beauty of the protocol is you won't progress any further. So we have people in my group who were walking with canes or weren't walking at all, and today they're walking. That's not the case with everyone who's had disability further out, but it's individual, and we don't know how each person's going to respond. But, yeah, there are a lot of cases like that. I lost my train of thought for a minute there. So with the protocol, it will suppress your disease 100%. It's not a cure, but it will completely halt your disease, and you won't progress any further in 95% of the cases. 95%
efficacy.
Yeah. So that beats Tysabri. So the protocol is economical, effective, and safe. It's hard to beat that.
Right. Wow. So the 95% efficacy is something it's unheard of. We don't hear that in regular medical circles talking about MS. We just never hear about 95% efficacy in something that is safe, economical, and it's going to halt your progression. That's so exciting.
Right.
Jennifer, now
I should say that 5%, they still see benefit, but they might not see complete benefit.
Sure. Okay, that makes total sense. And how can they find a high D doctor to get on this protocol?
So if they want to find a high-dose doctor, we update that. Dr. Coimbra has free trainings in Brazil, and this is just caught, like wildfire. And so he's booked well into next year, but he offers free trainings in Brazil. It's 1 week, and we update and maintain a list of these doctors, so every time they go through training, we add them. They can go to my Facebook page at Stop Multiple Sclerosis, and there's a link. And so we have a global map of all the doctors, and every time we have a new doctor, they get added to the map with their contact information. Some of these doctors also will offer virtual visits. So if there's not a doctor in your region or location, you can set up a virtual visit via Skype or another sort of platform like that, because we found that a lot of patients have financial and physical constraints. So it's hard for them to afford travel or hard for them to physically travel.
Now, that's very interesting how he's offering this training to doctors, because I do know of a few doctors, one specifically in Canada, that heard about the protocol, had someone that was newly diagnosed, and decided, hey, there's so much evidence behind this protocol that they wanted to learn it, and they did go down as well. So if you have a doctor that you're seeing or a naturopath or an osteopathic doctor, talk to them about this protocol because they might want to add this, service to their patients. And I highly recommend talking openly with your doctors about this, especially because the kind of results that people are seeing.
Yeah, we provide a lot of information to take to doctors. I will personally talk to doctors. Doctors can contact Dr. Coimbra. He will help them along. So, yeah, there's if your personal doctor wants to do it, it's amazing. We can use more. But, yes, absolutely, come see us, and we can provide your doctor with all the information they could possibly need.
That's amazing. Now, Jennifer, are you still on high doses of vitamin D? And will you have to continue this, or are your levels going to just stay up? What would people have to look to being on this protocol long term?
There is talk now that some people in their immune system will forget that they ever had MS after they were on the protocol for a while. But as far as we know now, that would not be 100% of the population and probably a smaller percent. It's more of a physiological thing where our bodies just don't, I don't want to say absorb. We're resistant to vitamin D to varying degrees. So we will always have to supplement that because of the way that resistance works. So we will have to be on that, parenthetically, as far as we know the rest of our lives. To me, that's so much better than a shot. It's so much better than declining. So it's an afterthought. I take them in the morning and I just go on and live a normal life.
And that's what we want. And the one thing we know as a world, and we're talking globally, people are vitamin D deficient. We know this.
Absolutely.
And I just love that you're doing this naturally. Now, Jennifer, how would you describe your health now? How would you describe your day? Is MS a part of that? I mean, what is your day-to-day life like?
Oh, no, it's amazing. I get up in the morning, I eat healthy. Most days, I had some Reese cups yesterday, but most days I eat very, very clean, very, very healthy. I walk the track at the local high school every day. I walk about 1.5 miles if it's not super cold. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I run. I run around all the time, probably as busy, if not busier, than most moms. So it never affects my day at all. I just live a normal, healthy life. Very grateful. Yeah.
Now, Jennifer, I know you wrote a book, and it's Stop Multiple Sclerosis and Autoimmune Diseases with High-Dose Vitamin D, because you are the first U.S. patient treated by the first U.S. Columbia Protocol doctor, right? Can you tell people how they can get your book?
Yeah, it's available on Kindle in paperback or Kindle form, and so you can actually download that immediately.
Awesome. Now, Jennifer, I know this call is going to bring so much hope to people and encourage people. What would you say the first thing is that someone living with MS should do after they listen to our broadcast?
I would definitely join our Facebook group. I started a little Facebook group. I didn't expect it to grow like it did. And as people got better and spread the word, they just invited more people. And now we're almost 6,000 plus internationally. Wow. So if you go to our hub page, Stop Multiple Sclerosis, there'll be a link to the group, a link to the blog, and other areas where you want to go to learn more. But our group is where we have all of our files. All of the patients are there. They're a very supportive group of people that are more than willing to help you. We have doctors and researchers in the group. Some of the protocol doctors are in the group. That's just the centerpiece to the protocol, and that's where you're going to get the support and the help and the information.
Jennifer, thank you so much for being on the broadcast today. I am thrilled, and we were talking before how I'm amazed. Again, this is a protocol that I was unfamiliar with after living with MS for almost 30 years. And so I know this is going to be able to help people, and I want to encourage our listeners, if you're suffering from MS, if you're taking care of a family member with MS, please have an open mind to things that perhaps you haven't heard about before, because we know that success leaves clues. People will usually use that mantra in a business sense, but it also goes hand in hand with our health. So you want to search out people who are living with and beating MS and how you can start taking steps day by day to also have a better journey so you can beat MS. Jennifer, thank you so much for being on the call. I know I'm going to have you on again because I really think we're going to have a lot of feedback here and people are going to have questions, and I hope that we can bring more information to everyone. And I want to thank the listeners today, and I'm hoping that I can bring more information to you on how you can beat MS. Remember, live in hope, focus on healing, and God bless. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.